Kimmy Robertson and Harry Goaz. So, kind of to get things started, I wanted to ask you guys, are you currently still under NDAs for anything, season 3 or otherwise?
Kind of. Some of them, yeah. Some things, yes.
Okay, so is that a confirmation there's going to be a season 4?
Yeah, because they tell me all that stuff.
Yeah. Before I know, a lot of people have got questions probably about the return, and tomorrow the panel at 2 p.m. is audience Q&A. So I think today we're going to do a little bit about the original series, season 3, and a little bit more about like the craft of acting. So I want to start off, Harry, since you're kind of newer in the convention scene, right? Haven't done too many shows, and not a lot of people have heard the story. Can you kind of walk us through and tell us like how your meeting with David happened and what led you to Andy Brennan?
I was working 2 jobs, and I was studying method with Paul Traylor, and one night I got a call to pick up Mr. Lynch and drive him to the Roy Orbison Memorial. Drove him to that glorious thing, and I thought, well, you know, I'm just going to wait for him. So I can't even believe that let the car sit there. I just sat there in the car, and when he came out, he was shocked. I was sitting there, and he got back in the car, and we talked and talked and talked, and he cast me that night. So that's the very abbreviated story.
All right. Kimmy, question for you. For me, I wrote all these down because, by the way, as you cannot tell, I'm not a professional panel presenter. I'm an artist, but I'm a Twin Peaks geek, so they got me to do this. Kimmy, for me, Lucy was always the one that held the sheriff station together. She seemed to simultaneously have all the details and systems worked out, yet she had an airy, dreamlike quality about her. Can you tell us about who Lucy is and how you kind of found her as a character?
No.
All right, well, that's going to be short.
I know that David Lynch told me that Lucy is not an airhead. She's not a bubblehead, is what he used, the word bubble. And that she knows what's going on in the whole town and the office, and it's her mission to keep everybody organized and on time, and make sure there's enough donuts, and the coffee's always fresh, the pot always had to be full, and that got to be a struggle in the 2nd season. I was always fighting with those prop people. They just didn't want to do it the right way. Human nature is to absolutely want to do everything wrong. And one day, it's weird, but I may have wandered off topic here. But one day was the show after we were in the woods writing on the chalkboard possible suspects when Andy was standing by the bottle and Agent Cooper hit the bottle with the rock throwing scene. And that we were back in the office, I assume it was that day later or the next day, and Lucy, I thought, should be reading a book on Tibet because Agent Cooper had just told everybody all of this stuff. So she has to get up to speed, and I said that to the prop person, and he was like, no, she doesn't want to know about Tibet, and you can't have a book on Tibet. And I said, all I need is a book, like one of these big books here. There was all these ledgers, and just write Tibet. And he said, no. And so I said, give me a Sharpie. I found a Sharpie, and he saw me starting to write in my perfect penmanship. Tibet, and he grabbed it away from me, and right then David Lynch walked on. He was directing that episode, and he said, "What's going on? We need to shoot in 2 minutes." And I said, "Well, I just thought Lucy would be reading a book on Tibet today." And he said, "Well, absolutely." And he looks at the prop person and says, "So where is it?" We don't have one. And he goes, "Well, make one." And I handed him the Sharpie and the David Lynch said, "That'll work perfectly." And he said, "But you have 2 minutes to do it." He brought it back in 2 minutes with a picture and everything. Did that answer your question?
And more. That's a question for James. To me, your character, probably one of the most misunderstood in the entire series, especially with some of the crazy adventures you take in season 2 with Evelyn Marsh and all that stuff happens. We had talked once before, and you'd mentioned there was a scene that was filmed that never aired, that kind of might give a little bit more context to your character about your mother. And I wonder if you could give us just like even a brief what that was about.
Yeah, the NDA question thing is kind of, it's like a constant thing usually with, the NDA is a official thing, but we're really not supposed to, I was telling you last night too, because I could talk about it a little bit, but I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's like they, I don't know anything about a 4th season, that's honest from my heart, but should anybody want to ever do anything with anything, they do have footage from stuff and they do have things they might want to use. So I don't want to say too much about it, but there's a lot that went on behind James's stuff that people didn't get to see, such as his mother. She was an extremely dynamic person as far as negatively dynamic. So it was he comes from basically a lot of neglect and abuse and all this strange stuff. So I won't go into some of the imagery, which we were talking about, which is really cool. But yeah, there were scenes written there were scenes shot with the mom and all this stuff. So there's this whole kind of other thing that James went through that nobody really saw that I do think would have added some stuff. Yeah. So, but I don't know. I mean, because I wish I could tell you guys, it's really cool imagery and really cool stuff he did, but no, this was in the original, this was in the original series, and just as they went back, spoiler time, I guess I shouldn't say it, just for people who haven't seen it, but yeah, but in the new series, there's some things where, they sort of explain stuff through showing you other stuff from, other stuff. So I don't want to say anything. So yeah. So it's like an NDA that's constant, sort of, if you have respect for the situation, which sometimes I screw up. So I'm trying not to desperately. What?
Do they know?
Oh, the NDA agreement is a non-disclosure agreement that we had to sign, for just that we're not allowed to talk.
Well, they sue you.
Yeah, or they really, hang you up. So, but.
Well, I hope someday. We waited forever for the Firewalk with me deleted scenes to make the light of day. So I hope, against hope, that maybe eventually someday, because I know there were so many things that we've seen scripts of, or there's been video clips of scenes that were shot from the original series and never aired. I hope someday maybe we get to see those things.
Yeah, me too.
Sherilyn, to me, you played this great transition in Audrey from kind of this troubled girl seeking her father's attention, and then into kind of fixing that relationship with her father, and almost in a way fixing her father too. And as that season kind of came to a close, your relationship was mending. He wanted to be good, and then we found out that he was the biological father of Donna. And I wonder if that was something that you would have thought about, if season 3 had happened at that time, how that revelation might have affected Audrey's relationship with Ben, or her moving forward, being that they had just kind of gotten back together.
Well, I've never even thought of that, to be really honest.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just don't have anything exciting to say. I don't think that I don't think that Audrey would feel that that was out of character for her father. I think it would more depend if season 3 had come along, how he was going to continue to interact with her or be there for her, or just kind of do that for a little bit and then flake out again. He's a pretty kind of selfish, narcissistic guy.
Did you get the feeling when we were doing, I know it's going back a ways, but at the time when you were doing those scenes where there was that resolution, did you get the feeling that that was a temporary situation, or did you feel like that was, really a mended relationship?
What I'll say is, a story is just a story on a page, right? And what your job is to breathe life into it. I personally believe that it's not about an imaginary life, but the extent to which you're willing to reveal your soul and explore things. So since I played Audrey, since by the grace of God he wrote her for me, which is crazy, I would say that relationship, that the core damage was done, as is done to all of us in the womb to 7 years old. That would produce great abandonment issues, which I have, great father issues, which I have. I'm just being honest, relationship issues, and I don't think that, I think that Ben is usually driven by some personal agenda. And I think that would take some years to see. I don't know, it's like, oh, great, this is great for now, but it could drop out at any second.
Okay, great, awesome, thank you. Did you have any other, jump in something in the background you want to ask?
Sure. I had kind of an actory question as far as picking the series up again. So obviously you've changed as people over the past 25 years or so. When you came back to your characters, I'm assuming you didn't get a lot of backstory as far as where they've been for the last 25 years or so. Was it very easy to kind of slip into those shoes again? Like, oh, okay, I know James, I know how this is going to be, or was it a bit of an adjustment to come back? Because it had to, I'm sure, be a little overwhelming, at least at first.
Is that for all of us?
Oh yeah, I'd love to hear anyone's take on that.
It's again, there was stuff that went on that David gave, I don't know what he did with other people, but a few little things with me, and he probably wouldn't want me talking about it, but I guess to say that, yeah, we've been through, it's kind of like when she does that mudra with her hands or whatever, it's almost like we went sort of to this, each one of us sort of took this weird sort of hiatus type thing that wasn't, it was like literally going on half-mast or something is the feeling I had. And then all of a sudden it's like a cycle, like the way, like when they say when the stars are right or whatever, it's like the stars, it all came back again and everything lined up again, and all of a sudden, boom, and then, okay, meditation over, now go live it all again. It feels like almost, it was almost an abstract time period is the only way I could put it. But he did give us some details.
Yeah, it was, I haven't ever said anything really about this because it's hard for me to think about the time when we were doing the first 2 seasons, and then the time we did the 3rd season was like all one time in a bubble or circle or an orb on a different planet where Twin Peaks is a real place, and everything else doesn't matter because it's sort of like the last episode where it looked so different, and it wasn't all sepia-y, it was stark and gray and beige, kind of like this room. And so naturally you're going to be like, oh, I want to go to that other place and also being on the set where it's all filled with love all the time and there's no nonsense that isn't for fun. It just, you kind of slip right back into it. Whatever I thought before I slipped back into it was like, it didn't matter, like putting your point shoes on before you are going on stage. You got to put them on, whether it causes you agony at all or anxiety, you still got to put them on if you're going to dance on point. Now, Harry has a much scarier story.
It was very hard.
Thank you. I think a funny thing happened is that all of the fans who I call Sacred Family has somehow kept Twin Peaks alive all these years. Like all these years. So, you know, we get things on Twitter or different places and that love is still there. And from, you know, being graced to meet the fans in person, as a few of us in the past few years have started to actually meet you all. And I think for me that added to like the excitement. Wow, we really did something that stood the test of time. We got to be in, you know, the maestro's world, and it touched all of the people and like young generations coming up and saying, oh, you're my favorite character. I'm like, I could have birthed you, you know. I have kids, you know, older than you. So when it came back, it was like, I embarrassed myself and screamed in a restaurant and honestly thought I'll do Twin Peaks and live happily ever after because I'm really naive. And then for me, as people know, I have a big mouth, so I get in trouble. So here I go. I was having issues with certain things. Some of us were shown pages. These are your pages. This is what you're going to do. And I didn't really understand what was happening, and so I got in trouble about it. And then we got in a fight, and then it was rewritten, and then it was amazing. So I'm so grateful. And I cried. Like, I didn't yell about it. I just said, ooh, and then I said, I'm crying too hard, I have to leave. And David was not happy. But I was just being honest. And then he wrote it really good. I mean, it was hell, right? It wasn't Audrey, you know. But it was certainly 25 years later, some of the chaos and like stuff that you're going through, and you're getting older, and your prisons in your mind, and who am I, and what are the choices that I've made, and why, you know. So it's I think it was real, and maybe revisiting some time when you thought that you were free, but you're still dancing there in a prison. And we all have a prison.
If I can kind of follow up on that actually with you, Sherilyn. When you first found out that you were going to be doing the iconic dance again, was it 100% like, yeah, I get to do that again, or was it, oh my God? I mean, your face is telling me, but.
It was like the first time, it was scary. I mean, the first time we got to the set and David said, we're rewriting this scene. The crew, get a cappuccino, go do this. You know, we're rewriting it. Laura, come over here, Sherilyn, and you're dancing. And it was just like, what? How am I dancing? With who? Where? You know, and they wrote the song and you're just going to groove and... Yeah, I don't really know what happened, but I just tried to connect with it. And yeah, so when this happened, I didn't think it was the same song. I didn't know what it was gonna be. And then, you know, it's trippy. You go to abstract world with him. You go to a different place. It's very hypnotic and weird. And walking on there, and the people, and oh my God, it was crazy. But I realized it was just kind of like her fantasy of like maybe when she felt connected, and you know, and yeah. I don't know.
And just kind of the converse of my other question. After all this time, is David different to be directed by, or is he the same David you knew back then? I mean, Sherilyn told me he switched to American Spirits, but you know, something more artistic than that, perhaps.
For me, the only difference is he'll he'll call you through the, or at least when I worked with, yes. So this big thing, Sherilyn, Fenn, come to the set, I have direction. I was like running across the set. What? You know, but wherever you are, you just hear it over this neat loudspeaker. So that was the big difference. Everything else was, he was so happy to be there. He was so happy, and he was like, I'm having so much fun, and you know, this world and these characters. And I personally think that they didn't, like an executive once said, and some of you may have heard me say it, that they went fishing for barracuda and they caught jaws. So it wasn't like they didn't know, but once all these years passed, it was like, it became the deep love for everyone, not only you, but I think even David was like, wow. Remember when he took us out, Kimmy? He took a few of us women out and he asked, what was your story of you getting the role? What was your, like he was taking back the pieces of something that I don't think he even himself knew. And I think that's when God comes in. Like, we're just vehicles, and like this thing came through that touched you all, and he was like, whoa, this is excellent, you know? Who knew?
Yeah, but that whole evening then turned into a big expose of my fucked up love life.
It did!
Just kept shaking his head and putting his hand. Oh my God. That was embarrassing.
Kind of coming back to things like your dance. James, you reprised your song at the Roadhouse. Were you surprised by that? How did that conversation go? And how? What was the?
Again, like with God entering the situation or something, it's like kind of funny because the whole thing with the initial song, it's a long story kind of, but it was the type of thing where David wanted it originally started, he saw that I played the guitar on the set, 'cause I was always playing to relax or whatever, and he goes, why don't you do a song on the show? And that's how it started. Then Angelo and he ended up writing that song, and we sat down and kind of played it, and then they recorded it. And when they recorded it, I thought I was going in, he told me, bring your guitar, you're gonna go in, we're gonna record. And I got there that day and they had already recorded everything except the voice. So it was a little, and I knew I had to sing that falsetto real high, and it was in a kind of a key that I struggle with. So when I had to sing the falsetto in that struggle, there was like a slight kind of pitchy thing that kept happening, and he was like kind of going, what the heck? And I was like, you sure we can't re-record this in a key that's easier from? No, it's solid, we don't have time, it's in there. So okay, so we hit it, we did it, and I think it really is meant to be, because it's like, so it's exactly, I think, what like a 17-year-old kid would be, you know, if he's recording, he's not gonna, some are incredible, but I mean, he's sitting down trying to hit this song, so it's cool. But I thought the remarkable thing was that he had, to answer your question, he called me and said, do you think you want to do the song? Can we do it or whatever, you know, at the Roadhouse? And I said, wow, that'd be fun, cool. When do we record it? And he's like, we're gonna use the same track. Which is, I was like, oh, you're not gonna give me the shot to, like, you know, come back and kind of get the falsetto right and have it all in key and have it like groove, you know. And no, I love the charm of it. And what was cool is that that blew me away. He took that exact same track, and when it plays in the new one, it's like, for some reason, it doesn't irk, at least me, it's still kind of, you know, but when I was able to hear it in a different way.